I try not to cuss. I try to keep a positive attitude, and for the most part I do great as long as I get enough sleep. Unfortunately, when this was done, I was under pressure and I hadn't slept well in 4 days because of the new baby and my daughter competing for attention, and I'm just not doing great. My health degraded to where I had a throat infection, and I was just having a hard time. So bear that in mind. I'm going to whine and complain about this car, and it's probably a lot worse than what I really think during any other point. So I said some regrettable things, but I figured I'd just leave them in there. Sometimes we have good days, sometimes we have bad days. This was on one of my bad days. Enjoy. If you drive one of these Chevy Cobalt, then you know what this is. Ghetto emissions air pump. Yeah. Alright, this video is going to have to be really short on account of I haven't slept in 4 days. I am sick as a dog. I can hardly breathe. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm just trying to get all my commitments done, including getting some videos up, but this one kicked my butt. I did not see this one coming. I went through and tested all. What the problem was is you go to turn the key on and it would say engine power reduced on the little Perndle display, and it wouldn't start. You push in the clutch, you crank it over, no starter signal. So I come out here and pop this open, and I could get the starter to engage by bypassing the relay. There's a couple of ways to do that. You can either send power directly to this pin here, or you can use a little device like this. All this is just a convenient jumper, because this is your power source, this is your ground, this is your signal wire, and then that sends power to make the starter go. So if you put this in here, you can engage the starter like that. Kind of a handy little tool. And with the key on, it'd start, but it'd run like snot. And so here's the codes it had. The 5-volt reference was missing. It had a air pump code, a couple of different air pump codes. And so the way the air pump system works is there's a solenoid on the back of the motor right here. If you go over the back, you can see it looks like an EGR valve, and you see a hose that goes all the way around to the air pump, and then there's another hose that comes off the air pump that comes up to here. And as you saw, if you have a vehicle like this, then you're going to be familiar with a site like this. Your gasoline car runs on hydrocarbons and oxygen. One of the byproducts of that combustion process is H2O. So as you saw, the air pump was full of water, just condensation and stuff. It just wiped it out. Where the air pump's located is just under here. This is kind of the same design like you see on a Volkswagen Jetta or something. You've got positive and a negative, and then you've got two hoses. You've got this one that goes up to the back of the motor that I just showed you, and the other one that goes up to a clean air supply from the air cleaner. All I did was replace this air pump, and then the starter works. I guess they drove it so many drive cycles or whatever that it said engine power to reduce, and it said engine disabled, and then it just wouldn't go. And you disconnect the battery, disconnect the computer, do whatever you want. Nothing was working. And basically, if that's not running, you don't get your 5-volt reference wire, and then the car starter won't start. And what a piece of... Well, I'm not a big fan of this, really. And that's that. So I just thought I'd put this video together. This is a 2008 Chevy Cobalt. Man, I was checking the ignition switch, I was checking the starter, I was checking the relays, I was going through everything trying to figure out what the deal was. If you get locked out of these, there's something that you can do to get it to get happy again if you think it's a key. And then the key's not cut right on this thing either. I mean, this car is just a beauty. Just total piece of work. So anyway, you go to do the key, and the key just will not go for anything. Wiggle the steering wheel, adjust it, nothing. You gotta pull it back a millimeter, and then it works. Took me a little while to figure that out. I was flipping the key around. Just the whole thing is just a pain in the neck, and you can hear the HVAC controls clicking away. I mean, it's got a solenoid that's bad back there, an actuator. Usually what happens is people will put pins and stuff up here, and the pin will fall in, and then the air dam hits against it and will wipe it out. This is a girl car. Girl drives it. But good grief, what a pain in the neck. There's that fuse box out there, and then there's another one. Get a little light in here. if you look down here, you can see there's a little fuse deal here, and there's a relay for the starter in there. You just grab it from the bottom and pull it out, and then you have access. So you've got one starter relay that's up here, and then you got two of them that say crank under the hood, and one of them that I actuated to get the starter to go. Checked all the fuses in here. Now there's one other thing that I didn't cover. Let me show you one of the fuses that blew for the air pump under the hood. So back in here again, this little 40 amp fuse was blown, and that if you look on the bottom of the cover, it says, you see it says there air pump. So I replaced that, and I thought that just doing that alone and unplugging that air pump that was full of water and blown up, you know, just total piece of junk. Thought for sure just replacing that fuse would correct the issue, but I had to put a whole new air pump in and have it plugged in and everything in order to get this thing to behave and want to start. So anyway, these fuses are like $7. What I did is I bent the things together and made them touch and switched it for the ABS just to be sure. The ABS is just that one next door right there. And of course, before I did any of this stuff, I started swapping relays just to make sure that it wasn't just that. But what a pain. If somebody's going to ask where I got those switches, I think I got them from the commercial department at O'Reilly's. You know, Shucks, Cragen, O'Reilly, Checker, whatever you want to call it. They can't decide who they are. So we'll let the name confusion just bite them in the butt. But these are not very expensive. There's an assortment of different ones, and they're kind of nice. You can do the same thing with a power probe, but the nice thing about these is to kind of point out which pins to look for. I mean, it's pretty obvious what connection needs to be made of from this 4-pin or 5-pin thing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if I sound annoyed, but I am very irritated with this kind of thing. I mean, this is, for crying out loud, there should be some more information, because I've got access to all this Chevy information about this stuff, and I didn't see anything that really indicated that this would make the starter not engage. I don't know if it was the number of drive cycles. These people drove it for a long time without that being fixed before they finally got it in. So maybe that's why it's designed that way, but good grief. Another thing I really didn't care for on this car, while I'm just berating it, is I don't like this buckle system with, you don't need to unbuckle that and then push this down to undo this. That's just redundant. That's just ridiculous. These are full of dirt, for one, so I made that suspect. This computer, this ECM here, rattles, which can cause all kinds of solder problems inside of it. This whole thing's just a real piece of work. I know this is the bottom of the line. It's a Chevy Cobalt, for crying out loud. It's not a Cadillac. It's not something. Dude, Cadillacs are even worse these days. I'm sick. I'm in a bad mood. I'm gonna say some things I'm gonna regret, but yeah. Kiss my posterior. Try not to cuss on these things, but this is, dude, I've just had a cuss day. I almost forgot, I made you think you know where all the fuses are, but you don't. If you go in the trunk where the battery is, look in here, there's another fuse that might surprise you. So the battery's in the trunk, and there's a 50 amp maxi fuse here. So, and this is called the X400 connection. These get corroded too and can cause problems, but in this case these were fine. I really covered my bases. I know this car pretty dang well now. No spin on oil filter either. It's another thing. I mean, for one, you're not wasting metal and it's not creating as much garbage, but look at what you got to do to get to this oil filter. There's something you have to service every 3,000–4,000 miles. It's under the frickin' intake. Really? I mean, they cut out this a little bit so that you could actually get an extension to the socket to put on that, but you can't even put an end wrench on it. I mean, it's just a real pain in the neck. I just really, you know, as a mechanic, you like to think that you're a princess and that the whole world revolves around you and that the engineers don't have any constraints except making your life easy. But then on the other hand, when you see designs like this, I mean, this is just a poorly designed car. I just don't care for it. You know, as far as the computer aspect of it, just the whole thing's just a nightmare. for that to be full of water is unexcusable. I mean, that's a shortcut, crappy emissions thing to do to begin with, to even have to have an air pump. I mean, we're really going backward in time doing that, but it was poorly executed, and then they incorporate it through the rest of the thing to where your car won't even run. I'm not impressed. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and if you're a Chevy Cobalt fan, hopefully we can still be friends.